their lines. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move forward. So thank you for joining this session of the K-12 Blackboard Innovative Teaching Series. This series is designed to help K-12 educators reimagine education with Blackboard's teaching and learning solutions. The K-12 Blackboard Innovative Teaching Series harnesses the power of our K-12 community of academic leaders, teachers, and other experts to provide relevant, real-time, on-demand, and ongoing professional development opportunities for K-12 educators. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Katie Gallagher, and I'm the Senior Product Marketing Manager for Blackboard's Teaching and Learning Products, and I'll be serving as the moderator for the K-12 Blackboard Innovative Teaching Series. Thank you to Claudine Townley, Solutions Engineer, and Colleen Smith from our K-12 Marketing team, who are joining us today and helping answer questions in the chat. We'll be joining you for the series this fall as the moderators. We're always open to new ideas for topics for this series, so please let us know if you're interested in presenting a session in the future or if you have an idea for a topic. We're currently scheduling the spring series, so don't hesitate to reach out on Twitter or through my email address there on the slide. Each webinar in this series is recorded. You can search for the K-12 Blackboard Innovative Teaching Series playlist on the Blackboard TV YouTube channel, or just use tinyurl.com/bitsk12 to go straight there. You'll receive this recording and presentation slides a few days after the webinar. You'll also receive an invitation to participate in an online PLC on course sites designed to augment this series and create an avenue for ongoing collaboration and dialogue. Please accept that invitation and participate in this new online PLC. Looking forward, you can see that we have many exciting professional development sessions lined up for the fall. This is just a snapshot of those that are coming up most in the near future. Please join us this Friday for a special session, really a little bit separate from the K-12 Bits series, by Brad Cook, and then again on Monday at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time, our usual time, for Conquering the Polar Vortex with Atlanta Public Schools. We're very excited about both of those sessions. And Brad Cook is doing the Teaching and Learning Roadmap. So you can sign up for all of the sessions at bbb.blackboard.com/K12bits. And I think Friday's session is a little different. So Colleen, would you be able to post the registration page for this Friday session in the chat for everyone? I'm going to go ahead and a complement to the BITS series is our new BBK12 Live app, which we're very excited about. And you'll be able to access all the BITS presentations in this app. They're added to the app as you go, as well as the best Blackboard World presentations from this summer. So for more PD on demand, anytime, anywhere, please be sure to download the BBK12 Live app. We're very excited today to welcome Stephen Anderson to the series. He'll be guiding us in curating content the right way. Stephen Anderson is a learner, blogger, speaker, an educational evangelist, and dad. As a former teacher and director of instructional technology, he is highly sought after for his expertise in educational technology integration and using social media for learning. As at Web20 Classroom, he regularly travels the country talking to schools and districts about the use of social media in the classroom and how they can better serve students through technology. Stephen has been a presenter and keynoter at several educational technology conferences, including ISTE, ASCD, and FETC, and VSTE as well as numerous state and local conferences. He's also responsible in helping create a Pound EdChat, weekly education discussion on Twitter that boasts over 500 weekly participants. Stephen has been recognized with the 2009-2011 EduBlogs Twitter of the Year Award, a Microsoft Heroes of Education Award, along with a 2013 BAMI Award, recognized worldwide as the Educational Emmy for his work with EdChat. So thank you so much, Stephen, for joining us today. We're very excited for the opportunity to learn from you. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to you, Stephen. And be sure to go ahead and unmute your line using *6.
All right, have you got me?
Yes, thanks so much.
All right, awesome, thank you. So that introduction, I want to meet that guy because he sounds pretty cool. All those things I get the opportunity to do some really cool things, including presenting for Blackboard, and the app was mentioned, and I have to say that I had the opportunity to be at VB World this year, and it was a really incredible experience. And the app is really cool because there's some really great on-demand learning there. So if you get a chance to check that out, do make sure you get to check that out. So just a little bit more. I'm Stephen Anderson. I'm a former director of instructional technology. I'm a former instructional technologist, current instructional technologist. I've been a middle school teacher. I taught middle grades math and science for a number of years, and have been an educator for a while now. I am a dad. I have 2 girls. I have a daughter who just started kindergarten a few weeks ago, and I have a 1-year-old who is probably just about the cutest thing you've ever seen. That's my Twitter @Web20Classroom, and that's my blog.web20classroom.org, where you can learn more about a lot of the things I'm doing, saying, and thinking. And afterwards, if you are watching this maybe as a recording, or we've gone through this and you have a question or something like that, you can always reach me at my blog, and feel free to ask questions there. So I like to say up front that I'm going to give you everything as a resource from this presentation. So everything I'm going to talk about, all the links, all the articles, anything and everything I'm going to talk about, including stuff that I haven't included, that I can't include in here, is already there for you. So what I've done is I've created a Google Doc that has all of the information in it, including all the image credits and all the resources. And all you need is that one link, bit.ly/blackboardcurate, and that will take you to a Google Doc that you'll be able to view that has everything I'm going to talk about, because I don't want you to have to worry about trying to capture, what was the name of that app, or what was the name of that website, or what were those 3 things. I want you to make sure you have all of that information up front, so you can just sit back and kind of soak in the learning. So make sure you write down that link, bit.ly/blackboardcurate, and then I'll also post that at the end as a reminder as well. So as we get started, what I want to do is we're going to talk about curation, and curation is something that's very near and dear to me because it's something that I embraced long ago, and that I think as educators we need to embrace as well. And I want to start out with a video. So what you're going to want to do is the sound's going to come through your computer, so you're going to want to make sure that you've got everything muted on your end, like they've asked. But the video is going to play through your computer, and then afterwards I'll say a few words about that. Great. So when I found that video, I was just, it was one of those things that was really fascinating to me, that I've been a curator for a very long time, and that I've been digitally hoarding information for a really long time, and I wasn't sure if that was the right thing to do. And when I found that video, it really validated a lot of the things that I was feeling about the way that I was collecting information and what I was doing with that information. I love museums. I love being able to go and to see history. I'm a big history nerd, so the whole Roosevelt series that was on PBS, I've had such a great time learning from that. But I love being able to go into a museum and see all of the stuff that's in those collections, especially the Smithsonian museums in Washington, D.C. And if you think about it, think about a museum. If you walked into it, and when you go, you get a brochure, or you get kind of a map that shows you all these different types of collections that they have. So if you walk into the Air and Space Museum, there's a collection for early space history, or there's a collection for artifacts related to the Wright brothers, or there's collections related to Charles Lindbergh flying the Spirit of St. Louis. And there's all these different types of collections. And imagine if you walked into a museum and with no rhyme or reason, they just had random stuff strewn about and no kind of order or organization to it. And it was up to you to piece together the story of what they're trying to accomplish at their museum. Ultimately, the museum probably wouldn't be very successful. It wouldn't be something that many people would go to. It wouldn't be something that many people would find interest in, because it was so haphazardly put together. And what we find, especially in education, as either professionals or especially with students, is that we're constantly collecting information, and we're utilizing things like blogs and Twitter, and we're doing research, and we're collecting all this information, and it just turns into a mishmash. It just turns into we turn into digital hoarders, that we just store it all, and we don't really know where it is, where we got it from, what its purpose is. And then when we go to try and retrieve it, and ultimately what I argue is we should be sharing that information, we can't in a very effective way because we haven't curated it appropriately. So what I want us to think about as we go through today is that all of the things that all the information that we come in contact to on a daily basis goes into our digital museum. It goes into a collection. And if you think about all those great things, those great artifacts that museums collect, if their doors weren't open to the public, if no one could see them, then what good would they be? Why would they be collecting them in the first place? So I want us to think about it in terms of creating a digital museum where we'll be able to utilize our artifacts for a certain purpose, but also be able to show those artifacts to the world. So I'm reading this really awesome book, and I saw it on a morning show several months ago from Daniel Levitin, and he actually wrote a book about rock and roll and the brain and rock and roll and the effects of the brain on when listening to rock and roll music, which was equally as fascinating. But this book called The Organized Mind talks a lot about how there's no such thing as multitasking, and it goes into a great detail of a lot of brain research and things like that. But one of the things that Daniel lays out in the first part of the book is there's research that's been done about the amount of information that we've taken in. So in 2011, we took in 5 times as much information as we did in 1986. So that's just a span of 15 years. So not very long, the information that we began to take in grew by 5 times. So the amount of information that we're bombarded with in just 2011 that we're bombarded with on a daily basis was the equivalent, or could fill, 175 newspapers of data each and every day. That is a tremendous amount of data. That's a tremendous amount of information. And think about if you tried to find each and every single piece of information that you came in contact with every day in some organized and logical way. If you don't have the tools necessary, if you don't have the tools at hand, if you don't have the knowledge to, one, be able to filter all of that data that's coming through to you, but being able to collect it appropriately, being able to make sure that it's the information that you need at the time that you need it, being able to store it, and then being able to share it, then all of it is just noise. And so what curation allows us to do is do just that. Curation is the act of collecting and vetting and organizing and sharing any type of resource, and that's my definition. Now, there's lots of definitions. There's lots more formal definitions of curation, but at its core, curation is not just the act of collecting, as some definitions will tell you. It's more than just collecting. It's making sure that you have a resource that is valid or that is necessary for what your purpose is, but it's also organizing that information. And that's where a lot of definitions stop. And I think it's wholly important as educators, not just educators but students as well, that we do this third part of curation, which is the sharing piece, and we'll talk about that as we go through. So these three pieces of curation, so finding and locating information is something that we do as educators on a daily basis, right? So we're planning lessons, we're looking at activities, we're constantly going out and we're looking for, okay, where am I going to find the best information? Where am I going to find that piece of information for this lesson that I'm teaching? And you might have a variety of methods and means that you do that. Some people start with, you know, that search box that's on Google.com with that blinking cursor, and they just start typing. Some people go to their favorite social media service, so like Twitter, or some people now are, you know, my wife is a 6th grade math teacher, so she's using Pinterest a lot to find a lot of resources that she's using in her classroom. Well, whatever it is, you've got some kind of method and means. And later on, we'll talk about some of the things that I use in order to find good information. But whatever it is, you're looking for information for a particular purpose. And you're keeping that purpose in mind as you're going through and you're finding that information. And then the second and pretty crucial part of this is the organization piece. And back when I was teaching, you know, I was doing a unit on the periodic table. I loved teaching chemistry, and I had a lot of things that I wanted to be able to show my students. And I had gone to a professional development earlier in the summer, and I remember there was somebody had shared a video and had shared a really great a resource a website to use in the classroom. And I remember I had taken some notes, and I had written those things down, but when the time came for me to be able to go back and find it, I could not for the life of me find it. I searched and I searched and I searched and I searched. I tried looking through notebooks upon notebooks. I thought, well, maybe I typed it up. So I searched through all my Google Docs. I searched through all Word documents. It was impossible for me to find what I needed. So organization isn't just the simple act of storing that information, which is clearly important. It's the act of being able to store it in such a way that you can get back to it, that retrieval piece, that if you're just sticking that information into your digital file and you're putting it away and expecting, oh, I'll just be able to search that later on and find that information, the fact is you've got to have a system in place in order to be able to effectively find that information, because curation is not just about, again, not just finding the information, but effectively re-finding it when you need to be able to use it. And then lastly, I make the argument often that curation, if you're just a digital hoarder of knowledge, people can't learn from your information. And so it's important for you to share what you're curating. And many people do that lots of different ways, and we'll look at several different ways later on. But no matter how you share it, it's important that you add your information back into the collective understanding, because that sharing piece, if you think about the colleagues that you work with, that you trust their ability to do their job, and you trust, hey, here's a great resource I found that I'm using with my kids, and you trust them. And so you're more apt to be able to use that resource in your classroom. And so if you're sharing and people see the great stuff that you're curating and that the reasoning behind it and how you're using it, then they're more likely to share those things from you and use it in their work. And it makes this whole process of education seamless. The same thing for students too. Students should be sharing the information that they're curating, not only because we want them to see the value in being able to share that knowledge, but because it shows them that there is an audience beyond themselves. So when students are doing research and they're curating information, that curated information shouldn't just live on their bibliography page. It should be something where they can share that with somebody else, so that when the next kid comes along, they've got that head start to be able to go in and see the work that had been done and apply their own filters to it, or apply their own vetting process to it. It's not a matter of any of us cheating from each other or getting a leg up against another group of students or another group of educators. It's a fact of, hey, somebody else has done this work for me, so I'm going to go out and I'm going to share that work so somebody else can build upon what I'm creating, but so they can also learn from what I'm sharing and maybe see it in a different way or use it in a different way. And I think that was the point in some of the videos, was that one of the ladies talked about this newification of information, how it's somehow perceived that just because information is newer means that it's better, and that's not true. That you might be doing research, or your students might have done research 2, 3, 5, 10 years ago that can still hold a lot of value today, but if it's not shared, no one has the opportunity to learn from it. And a lot of times that information can be better because of the way it was gathered, or the way it was saved, or the type of information that it is. So it's wholly important that you share this information in some way, and we're going to look at lots of different ways to organize and share that information as we go through today. But I want to take a minute out to talk a little bit about that it's not just finding the information that's important. It's how you're going to use that information, and really this is an opportunity for us to talk about digital literacy skills. And I think this is one area where we have a lot of work to do in education, not just with students. So helping students have someone mentioned, oh, we're bombarded with lots of information each day, but I think as humans we have this innate ability to filter out the things that we don't need. That is true. Adults do most adults have a good knack of being able to filter information. What a lot of students and adults are lacking is the skills necessary to be able to vet information, to be able to ensure that information is reliable or is valid. And a lot of adults especially don't have the ability, or don't have the skill set to check sources, or to check to see if the information really is what they say it is, especially in this age of social media. And we've seen this a lot with real-time news events, where people they see something and then they tweet it back, or they share it out without actually doing some homework and seeing what it really means. So these information literacy skills are not only something that are important for students, and we as all adults have a responsibility to teach students information literacy, and it's not just digital literacy skills, it's just all information literacy. But as adults, we need to be modeling those good information literacy skills. And so I think there's three things that you should focus on when looking at information literacy when you're collecting this information. So no matter this goes for no matter the source that you're using to gather your information, there are three real big points here. The first is, what's your goal? What is it that you're trying to save? Why do you need this resource? What am I going to use it for? Simply going out and gathering haphazardly can sometimes prove fruitful. You can certainly find great information. But if you have a targeted approach, if you have a targeted method of being able to find that information, you're going to come up with higher quality information. And the real thing to think about is when are you going to use it? Information, especially today, goes stale very quickly, especially digital information. So combining these two, what is your goal and when are you going to use it, is really, really critical when looking at the information. So if you've got a timely, science article or a blog post or, a web app that you want to use with students or for your own professional learning or for a lesson, you need to think about, what is it exactly that I'm going to use this for? Does it fit some goal that I'm trying to accomplish with my learning? Does it fit with what my students are going to be doing? Does it fit with what I'm going to be teaching? What am I actually going to be using this for? Am I just gathering just to gather and a whole bunch of knowledge, or am I actually going to use it for something? And then how soon am I going to use it? I try to have a 6 months to a year limit on information. Now that doesn't mean that I don't share things or save things that are older than a year, but I try to make sure that as I'm doing targeted searches, as I'm looking for information for a particular project that I'm working on, so I'm constantly working with administrators on the various topics, so I'm trying to find timely news articles and things like that, that I'm trying to find those things that are relevant today as part of the conversation, so that I'm not sharing something that has either been disproven or is something that has gone out of date. So it's important to really consider what is it that you're looking for. And that's not to say there's not value in just sitting down in front of a Twitter stream and looking at links and clicking them and saving them. But when you're actually trying to target information for a curated search, when you're looking for that piece of information for your lesson, or when, especially with students, a lot of times students sit in front of a computer and we say, okay, we want you to research, your topic is World War II. Discuss the reasons the nations entered World War II. And so what do? They take your sentence that you said you want them to do, and they type it into Google, and they start to search. So it's not just employing, what is your goal and what is the information, but and when are you going to use it, but it's also employing good search skills of understanding search terms and understanding, all of those things that go into making up a good contextual search. And I've included a lot of information in the resources for that. But it's having that goal in mind and understanding where you're going to use the information. And then once you find that information, how reliable and valid is that information? So that's not to, so people, you love to use the argument about Wikipedia. Oh, Wikipedia is not a valid source. It can't be used as a source. You're right. It's not. It's not a primary source. All the links at the bottom are primary sources. But to discredit something like a Wikipedia as a starting point, I think it misses the point that it's a good opportunity to teach students about reliability and validity in the information that they find. So you can read a Wikipedia article, but you can also see where did they pull that information from. And this is where we get back to teaching students about, and teaching adults too, about, where does your information come from? It's the, how do you know, do you use a .edu site, or are you going to use, is it going to be somebody's, personal website, and how do they know, where do they get their information from, and, how can you start with primary sources? So these are all things that, this is a whole separate topic outside of curation, but the skills that come with information literacy are so vital to ensuring that you have quality in the curation process. It's important here to mention that you've got to spend time, especially with students, have got to spend time on these information literacy skills, and the American Library Association, the ALA, has a great set of what are those information literacy skills. I've included a link. What are the information literacy skills that students should have? And many states now today have information literacy skills. I know here in North Carolina we have a whole set of information literacy standards that students have to be able to goals they have to be able to reach by the end of each grade. But that's a huge part of the curation process, because as you're going through and you're saving this information, if you have a purpose in mind and you know that the information is going to be timely and you know that you've validated the data and you know that it's reliable, well then you're that much further ahead when you go to use that information for whatever the purpose is. You've already done the work ahead of time. Before you use it, you've already vetted it, and you've already got it organized in that way so that when the time comes to use it and to share it, it's much more of a trustworthy source. Now, one of my favorite professors is Howard Rheingold, and if you're involved in digital spaces at all, you've probably heard of Howard. And Howard writes a lot about digital age cultures and writes about this idea of what he calls craft detection. And that's essentially what we're talking about here is this idea that, we're constantly bombarded with information, but we have to have filters in place. And I love this quote here that, we are indeed inundated by online noise pollution, but the problem is soluble. The good stuff is out there if you know how to find it and verify it. And that's really at the heart of all this, is that curation is not just a, casting your net out and pulling in and taking whatever lands in the net. It's really having those information literacy skills that are essential to vet the information that you're finding in order to use it in some way? How do you know, and asking yourself those questions, especially students, asking those questions. How do you know that what you're using is valid? How do you know it's reliable? What are the methods that you use? And students, as they're presenting information or that they're citing sources, should be able to tell you that. They should be able to tell you, hey, this information, how do you know it's reliable? How do you know that where you got it from is a good source? You know, the same thing with adults as you're going through with it. The adults should be able to say, oh, well, I know it's valid because there's lots of great information on Pinterest, but, you know, a lot of it just gets repinned or gets shared because it looks pretty or it's, you know, it sounds great. And what you've got to employ is you've got to have that craft detection filter of knowing what's good information and what's bad information, so that you're ahead of the game as you begin to curate, actually share and organize and store that information. All right, so let's look at the first part of the curation process on where do we find the best stuff. And I have 3 places that I use a lot, that I rely on most exclusively to find information. The first, funny enough, is hashtags. And so I really think there's power in the hashtags. I wrote a blog post a while back about the power of the hashtag, and how when folks are getting started with Twitter, it's a good idea to not even start with a Twitter account. When I was working in a district as an instructional technologist, I did a lot of introductory to Twitter sessions, and so we would go out and I would work with a group of, let's say, 10 teachers, and we would get them all registered into Twitter, and we would teach them all here's what an @ symbol means, and here's what the hashtag symbol means, and oh, now you've sent your first tweet, and here you need to follow these 10 people. And we would do a follow-up 2 weeks later, and we would ask them, okay, how many people have touched Twitter since then? And nobody would raise their hand because they didn't find a value in it. And what I found was that when I focused less on the mechanics, focused less on the how to start an account and how to write a tweet and all those things, if we focused more on where the valuable resources were, teachers and educators found more value out of using Twitter as a tool for finding information. And so I spent a lot of time teaching people how to search for hashtags. And if you didn't know, you can search for hashtags on Twitter without even having a Twitter account. So Twitter has a very, very powerful search feature that's built in that anybody can use at search.twitter.com, and I've included that link, search.twitter.com, and you can type in a hashtag. And you can see everything that's happened around that hashtag. You can see the top people who are tweeting that hashtag. You can see the top resources over the last 24 hours, the top tweets over the last 24 hours. You can see all the tweets that people are saying on that hashtag. And it becomes very, very powerful. So if you're an English teacher and you're looking for English-specific resources, then there's a hashtag EngChat, E-N-G-C-H-A-T, that you could type into Twitter and you could see those resources, even if you didn't have a Twitter account. Or maybe you're a math teacher, or maybe you're a science teacher. There are hashtags for all these things. The key is to find those hashtags. And what I've done is I've included a link to a gentleman by the name of Jerry Blumengarden he himself has curated a list of hashtags. There are literally hundreds of hashtags that he has on his page that go from everything from content areas to teaching ideas like flipped classroom or Common Core or, you know, ed tech, and they go into grade levels, so 4th or 5th, or, you know, all of these different areas involved in education. It goes to so much depth. There is a hashtag literally for every person out there that they can find information. And so I spend a lot of time looking, if I'm looking for something for a specific purpose, on a hashtag. I use a Twitter client that allows me to just to have the hashtags that I want to follow right there. And so I can see them all the time as they're being tweeted. But the hashtags can be a very, very powerful place to start to look for information. So especially if you're in a subject area like math or, you know, history or something like that, a lot of people are sharing blog posts that they're writing, or hey, or they have questions. Hey, I'm looking for resources for teaching kids, you know, how to find the area of a cylinder, or, you know, something like that. And they post those questions, and you can search and you can find those, and you can refine those searches on those hashtags to find specific information. And they truly are powerful. The thing is to remember, you don't have to be a member of Twitter in order to use that. So if you don't feel like you want to start signing up and start tweeting, you don't have to, but you can utilize the same kinds of searches whether you have a Twitter account or you don't. Now, for some people, they don't find value in Twitter for whatever reason, and that's fine. I do a lot to try and convince people that they need to use Twitter, but I also do a lot to say, hey, there are other ways out there, and one of those ways are blogs. I've been a blog writer and reader for a very long time, and I think blogs are a great way to see what people are saying. And for me, it's an open reflection of what I'm doing and what I'm thinking and what I'm saying. But a lot of people share a lot of really great stuff on their blogs, and so finding good blog posts can happen lots of different ways. Somebody might email you a link or something like that. But what a lot of bloggers have are what are called blog rolls, or they have blogs that they read. So if you're looking for blogs, to be able to follow, check out the blog rolls that people have on their sites. And I've included several blogs that I read on a daily basis that come from a variety of sources. So there's my friend Tom Whitby who writes more about education theory and things like that, and ed policy. My buddy Kyle Pace, who writes a lot about ed tech and especially Google, so he's sharing a lot of Google resources and things like that. My friend Vicki Davis, who's Cool Cat Teacher, so she's sharing a lot of really neat things, and so that allows that. I've got you a good list, but what all of them have is a list of the blogs they're reading, and they have places that they go that they enjoy to read. And this all goes back to that vetting process, where if somebody is sharing their information and you're reading their information, you're finding value from it, and they're sharing something else, they've gone through a process in order to vet that information. I'm not going to share anything that I don't believe in, that I don't think somebody else wouldn't find value in, and so a lot of these bloggers are the same way. There's also another link that's in there that I've included called the Teach 100, and that comes from the University of Southern California. And it's a list, it's a ranking. I don't care for the rankings quite so much, but it's a list of over 100 blogs that are being shared through various means, and they rank them, but ignore the rankings because all of them from top to bottom are really, really good. That could be a really good place to find resources. And so I show you these outside of Google searches because while there is something to be said about, this newness of information, it is a place where people are sharing things constantly. And again, I look at it in terms of if Kyle shares with me a really great resource on Google that I can use in something that I'm doing, I trust Kyle a great deal. And I trust what he has to say, so I'm going to use that resource. I didn't just go out and I just didn't search for it. Kyle found it and shared it for me, and then I can use that information in what I'm doing. And so blogs can be a really great place in order to start finding information, especially timely information, or just open up your eyes to new information or new apps or content that you may not otherwise be exposed to. Zeit and Flipboard are another one of my favorites. So these are apps that go on your mobile device. And if you haven't used Flipboard or Zeit, so they used to be two separate companies. Now they're one company, but they still maintain separate apps. But they go out and they describe themselves as they curate the content for you. So they have some algorithms that they use to present content to you. So Zeit is my favorite. And with Zeit, you can go in and you can put in specific terms that you're looking for. So if you're looking for, education technology, or you're looking for, BYOD or flipped classroom, you can put those terms into Zeit, and Zeit has an engine that goes out and finds the information that people are sharing the most, and then presents it to you in a magazine format. Flipboard does the same thing. Flipboard's a little more targeted at finding information from specific sources, but Zeit comes from, it pulls information from lots of different places, not just social media. They both have a really good engine to show you great content. I find a tremendous amount of stuff from Zeit. that then I can go back and I can save for a particular reason. So if you're just looking for content, if you're looking for a way to, if you're looking for a way to on the go to be able to find information, I love these two. They have iPad and tablet apps. They have mobile apps, and I use these ones a lot. Those are three of my favorites on finding information. Now, most importantly, how are you going to save that information? So you've got to be able to organize it, and you've got to be able to share it. So again, I have three tools that I use on a daily basis, and I know we're running short on time, so I'll quicken the pace because I want to make sure you've got time to answer. I've got time to answer questions. But so Pocket is the one that I use most often. When people ask me if there was an app that disappeared today that you would cry a whole lot of crocodile tears over, it would be Pocket. So Pocket is a little service that sits in your browser. So I use Google Chrome. So it's a little Chrome extension. And whenever I see a website or I'm trying to save something, Pocket is the place where I save things so that I can go back to them later when I don't have time to vet that resource right then. So especially when I'm in a Twitter chat or I've got 10 minutes in between meetings and I'm looking at tweets. Aaron just shared a really great resource on brain-based classroom learning. Well, I know I want to go back and read that, but I don't want to favorite the tweet. I can open the link, hit my Pocket button, and it saves it to the account. You can see it presents that information in a pretty visually appealing way. What's really great is Pocket strips off all of the ads and all of the stuff around what you're trying to read, or strips away all the video stuff so that you can just focus on the content and determining whether or not it suits a need for you. So Pocket is the first place that I go when I'm saving information. The beauty here, it used to be called Read It Later, and so there's an unread list of resources, but there's also a read list of resources, of items that I've already read that I've taken off, but it saves those to a list too. So I have the ability to be able to find those. And what you probably see is this little magnifying glass, and what that is that's a search. And so that lets me talk about an important part of the organization process. You remember when I was looking for that piece of that video and that piece of resource that I was going to use in my periodic table lesson, if I had saved it to a place like Pocket or the other apps that I'm going to talk about and tagged it as periodic table, I wouldn't have to remember the name of the resource. I wouldn't have to remember if it was a video. I wouldn't have to remember anything about it. All I'd have to remember is periodic table, and I would be able to find that video back. Tags are a super easy way of being able to remember information. So as you're saving these things, and all the apps that we'll look at allow you to tag, tagging is the essential way for you to be able to go back and find information. If you're not tagging your resources, you're missing out, because you're going to have a hard time trying to remember what was the name of that website, or what was the name of that, what was the title of that article. If you tagged it with something that you can remember, you can go back and you can look at your tag and say, oh, let me see everything I have on periodic table. Let me see everything I have on chemistry. Then you would be able to find that information a whole lot quicker. So as you're going through, you've got to tag these things. The second app that I absolutely adore is Evernote, and I use Evernote for a variety of things. Evernote also allows tagging, but Evernote, if you don't know, allows you to take notes. You can put in audio and video, and you can do all sorts of things with it. Organize them into notebooks, so you can put notes into notebooks and organize them. So you can see I've got lots of different types of notebooks. But you can also they have extensions, like they have a web clipper that allows you to pull little quotes or full articles, and you can post them right into notes and be able to share those. I use Evernote a lot for curating resources when I'm actually building content for, maybe I'm going out to a school district and I'm trying to build a set of presentations for them or some workshops, and I want to make sure I include lots of varied types of information. So I go out and I create an Evernote notebook for it, and I can dump all the information into that one notebook, tag it, and then I can begin to put it together and piece it together, and then build my presentation. So it's kind of a place for me to dump a whole lot of information, to be able to go back through it, take notes, write down a lot of things, and then be able to go back and organize it. So I use Evernote for a variety of things, but in terms of organizing, it's great for articles and blog posts that you want to share, because there's a sharing feature in here. that allows you to quickly email or share, with a notebook or with a link that information. And then the third one that I use all the time is Diigo. A lot of people have heard of Diigo. It's social bookmarking. Diigo is the place where I go that people know that if this is a resource that I have that I'm sharing, I've vetted it, it's for you, it's out there for you to take and to use. I can't even tell you how many things I have in my Diigo list. Probably I've got thousands of links in my Diigo list. But if I didn't have those tags on the left-hand side, if I didn't have Web 2.0 or education or technology or Google or whatever, I would never be able to find those resources again. Video, there are 80 links that are just tagged with video. I wouldn't be able to find those things again. So being able to tag and to search and to save, my Diigo library is my public part of my curation. This is my museum. This is where I'm putting things on display. And that gives us to the share. So no matter what you do to share, all of the apps that we looked at here have a sharing component built in. They have the ability for you to share. You can share Diigo links straight to your favorite social network. You can share Evernote notebooks the same way. You can do Pocket the same way. But even in Zeit and Flipboard, you can share those. But the point is you've got to create some kind of digital museum in order to be able to show off those things that you're curating, that you're collecting, that you have a purpose for, not only so you can give back to them later, but so that you can show off to the world, look at all these great things that I've collected, and I want you to have them too. It's only going to prove fruitful in the end. I personally believe we have a moral obligation as educators to share, and this is the way that I do that. I use things like Twitter and Diigo and Evernote in order to share those things that I'm learning. But that sharing component is your digital museum. It's your way of showing the world those things that you're sharing and you're creating. All of these things can be used by students. All of these resources, all of these tools can be used by students. And so they can begin to curate their information. I especially believe in Diigo and Pocket for students, that they need to have those quick ways of being able to save the information so they can get back to it later, but also save that information so they can share it with somebody else. I really believe in those two for students, and I think there's a huge potential for students to be able to be better organizers of information by using that. So as we wrap up, the three parts of the curation process, not only just finding the information, finding appropriate information and vetting it, making sure it's reliable and it's accurate, but it's also organizing information. It's also organizing it in a way that you can find it later, so using tags is important. And then lastly, sharing that information. Show it off in your digital museum so that other people can learn from your information as well. So I'll leave that link up there, that bit.ly/Blackboard Curate. That has all of the resources from today. That has all the image credits. That has all those things. And as we're going through, I'm thinking of, I need to put this in. I need to put this in. So as soon as I get done, I'll go through and I'm going to edit and be able to put in some more things. You can leave a comment on that doc and be able to put in anything you suggest that you think should be added there. You can add in those suggestions there. I'll be happy to take those. But with that, I'm going to pause here in the time that we have left and see if there are any questions.
Thank you so much, Stephen. This has been wonderful. I haven't got a lot of questions throughout the presentation, but I'm going to encourage everyone actively to go into the Q&A or go into the chat, wherever you're more comfortable, to type your questions, and they're starting to come in here. I've got one. Is the Bitly active yet?
Yeah, in fact, let me test it just to make sure. I'm going to type it in right here. Blackboard Curate. Apparently, I need to fix it. Let me go in and fix that while we get another question.
Okay,
that's a good call out.
Sure. It looks like there's something wrong in the URL, so we're going to update that and send it out before the end of the call. I've got a question here, Stephen. For teachers that you may have guided or assisted with curating content in the past, have you heard any feedback on how this process has worked for them?
So, I think when teachers collect a lot of information, it can be very overwhelming. Like you go to a conference and you find, you get inundated with lots of good information. And if you don't have a process by which to be able to save it effectively, it's that second half of it. It's that organizing piece where a lot of this falls apart. We can find great information all the time. Teachers can find a lot of good information all the time. It's the second piece where they fall apart. They don't have the skills or the tools necessary to be able to save that information. But before they even do that, it's the information literacy piece. Am I going to need, do I really need this? Is this something that I can really use? It's kind of like, you know, when I was teaching, I used to get notebooks upon notebooks upon notebooks of stuff that I never used, and so it just collected dust in my classroom. Digital resources can be the same way. Oh yeah, I'm going to use that for this lesson later on, and what you're going to find is you're going to have 10 things better that come along. But if you don't organize it in such a way that you can find all that stuff, it's meaningless to you. So teachers that really begin to use a curation process where they're saving that information and tagging it, especially, and then being able to share it, they really find, and what I found is what they tell me is that they're better able to access the information when they need it more quickly, and they also feel like they're better organized so that they know exactly what they have and can utilize all those great things that they're finding on a daily basis. So teachers and students who use this, especially students who should be taught these skills as well, because I think it is a part of the information literacy, are finding that they're better organized, they're better able to use the resources that they're finding. They're finding better resources because they're using those skills of information literacy, and they ultimately have a much more positive experience with their learning than if they're very disorganized.
Excellent, excellent, thank you.
And that link should be working.
Yes, it's confirmed the link is now working, and just wanted to reassure everyone on the call that in the follow-up email you'll receive with the recording and the presentation slides, you'll also be receiving that link included in there, so that will be coming as well. A second question for you, Stephen. What are some ways that I can help enable teachers in my school who might be feeling information overload? Is there an approach that you recommend for partnering with them to help them get started without feeling overwhelmed?
Yeah, and that's definitely like the Brain Book talked about. I mean, we get inundated so much. You know, you hear, oh, you need to be here to find this information. You need to be here to find this information. I think it is working with them to find the place where they feel most comfortable that they can find that information. So maybe it's just being able to search hashtags every day. So maybe they're a science teacher, and you say, okay, I want you to just focus this week on searching on just Twitter hashtags. That's not to say you're not going to use the other, the traditional ways that you're familiar with, but I want you to just focus a lot of energy and attention on looking here. Now, that can serve as a positive. I put out Flipboard, and I put out Zeit, and I put out blogs and doing this, and those are things that have taken me a number 6 years almost to that I've been using a lot of those things in order to get a good flow. But don't feel like you have to, like especially with Twitter or blogs, that you have to read every tweet, you have to read every post. If I tell people a lot of times with Twitter, the cream rises to the top. The stuff that people find a lot of value in gets shared a whole lot, and it will come up over and over and over again. So if you can only check Twitter in the morning and you can't check it until the next morning, but you have this anxiety that you're going to miss something, don't, because the stuff that gets that has a lot of value that people find, oh, this is really, really good, gets shared over and over and over again. So inevitably you're going to see it. The same thing with blog posts, the same thing with with a lot of the resources that are out there. You're going to hear people say them and talk about them over and over. So don't have a whole lot of anxiety, like you have to go to a lot of different places, you have to be involved in a lot of different conversations. Find the one that you can fit that works into your schedule, that works into with your search method. Maybe it's, I don't discount Pinterest. Maybe you can surf Pinterest at night, after the kids go to bed, and you're just looking at certain pins. And maybe that's all you can do once a night. That's fine. But do it in a systematic way that you're kind of doing the things that I've talked about, but also you don't feel like, don't have anxiety that you're going to miss the good stuff. The good stuff will come to you. The more often that you engage in those spaces, the more often the good stuff will come to you.
Great, thank you. Now I do have 2 more questions here, and for some reason I'm not seeing them in the QA, but thank you to Colleen who's feeding them to me as well. So the first one, I'll give you both so you can decide which order you'd like to answer them, and I can repeat it later, Stephen. But the first one is, how do you teach teachers and students to break down only the pertinent information and share only those valuable components, extracting non-important details? So zeroing in on what's important. The second one is, and maybe since you were just speaking about Twitter, for someone who's just getting started with Twitter, what are your top 5 recommendations? You mentioned start slow by searching hashtags and things like that. Any other good tips if you had to boil it into your top 5 Twitter recommendations for a beginner?
So I'll tackle the Twitter one first. So, definitely hashtags. Hashtags are where it's at. And then the other thing, I think the second thing that really helped me was lists. So lists can be a great way to make sure that you are following. A lot of people have a list of their favorite people that they follow. Jerry Blumengarden, in fact, if you look on his page, he has links to some Twitter lists of, hey, here's a whole bunch of math teachers that you can follow. Here's a whole bunch of social studies teachers. So looking at people and then who they're following, who they're retweeting, so that you can build, especially so you're starting out, you're looking for who the heck do I follow? Well, here's the 5 people that you should follow, and then who are they following? Who are they retweeting? Who are they mentioning? Whose blog posts are they tweeting about? And so that's one thing. I would really utilize something like Pocket, because you're going to see great links. You're going to see great resources that you just don't have the time to look at right then, but you're going to need a way to save them. And I'm not a fan of Twitter favorites. But you're going to want a way to save those links, and so I love using Pocket in that way. That this is I save something there. It's not valuable to me. I can get rid of it later and it goes away, or it is valuable to me and I can save it and I can put it in my Diigo account. So utilize something like Pocket, and then utilizing something like a Twitter client. So using a TweetDeck. Or a Hootsuite. I'm a big fan of TweetDeck, so that you can better organize your tweets. So not only can you see all of the people who you follow, but you can follow those hashtags. You can follow those lists, and you can do all those things through a Twitter client. So those would be the getting started points. Now the first question of how do you teach kids about filtering out the information, the good from the stuff that you don't need, I think goes back to having that plan. So information literacy, I used to teach information literacy by starting out non-digitally. So I would have students do a project, and I would tell them, okay, at first, this is exactly what you need to have. And we would talk about, after it was over, okay, why did I want you to have exactly these pieces of information? So it's not just teaching them the content, but it's having a conversation about why is it that I wanted you to have these specific things. Why was it that I wanted you to have and look in these specific places? And so sometimes it requires some hand-holding, especially with middle school and high school kids, because these are kids who have not been exposed to information literacy before. They've been told to go out and search for content, and they do, and they bring it back, and oh no, you shouldn't have searched there, or oh no, you shouldn't have pulled in that, so you're going to get a bad grade, but without any explanation. So sometimes it takes some hand-holding, and then releasing the reins a little bit. It's being explicit in what you're looking for, and then having the conversation with the students. Why was it that I want you to find that information? Or when they give the information back to you, that's the stuff that you're not looking for. Asking them, why did you include this? Why did you think that this would be a good piece of information? And it becomes less about the content and becomes more about the skills, because it's really the skills that are going to take them far in being able to find the correct information and weed out like Howard says, having that good craft detector of being able to get through the weeds and finding the good stuff. It's more or less having a conversation and saying, why did you use this piece of content versus this, or why did I ask you for this specifically, and you presented this? Do these two things match? Is this what I was asking for? So again, it becomes less about the content and more about the conversation that you have about why they did what they did.
Great, thank you. Great answers. I'm looking to see if I see any more. I'm not shutting down questions at this point, but I don't have any other questions at the moment, and we're at the end of the hour, but please feel free to keep adding them in. I'm going to go ahead and advance a slide or two. Did you want to speak to this slide, Stephen, before I move to kind of our wrap-up slides?
Yeah, that's just my Twitter and my blog. Feel free to get in touch if again, if you have a question or you need something afterwards, don't hesitate. I've got places on my blog where you can get in touch, or you can send me a tweet.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been really enlightening. I'm excited to try out a lot of your recommendations on the call today. So just a reminder before we close to be sure to download the Blackboard K-12 Live app. I think Colleen posted the blog in the chat. Yes, she did earlier about the app, but it's really great on demand, anywhere, anytime, PD from this series as well as from BB World this summer. And just to wrap up, wanted to thank everyone for participating in today's session of the K-12 Blackboard Innovative Teaching Series, and thank our presenter, Stephen Anderson. Really a wealth of information. I'm seeing positive comments pour in for the Q&A, so be sure to take a look at that. As a reminder, we're beginning to line up our sessions for the spring series, so everyone please let me know if you're interested in presenting or you have ideas for topics that you'd really like to learn more about. Please let me know. Reach out to me at @Katie_Gallagher on Twitter or by email. You'll receive the recording from today's sessions and a PDF of the slides a few days after the webinar, as well as an invitation to participate in an online PLC to augment the series. So please accept that invitation and participate. Again, don't forget to join us on Friday at noon for a special K-12 Teaching and Learning Roadmap presentation by Brad Cook, as well as next Monday for a session by Atlanta Public Schools on conquering the polar vortex. So thanks everyone for taking time out to join us today. We really appreciate your active participation, and thank you again to our speaker, Stephen Anderson.